Good evening, this is Harish from Scepter Software, and today we are going to talk on the custom workflow process that is built on the Force.com platform. And what we are going to cover as a function point in this particular presentation is we're going to talk about how a custom status can be defined and maintained. Same thing, how different actions can be created and maintained, and how we can create a new custom workflow and create workflow process steps associated with it, and then how the action plays a role in the page layout and how it can change the status depending on the workflow. And then we're also going to talk about the permission set, how we can integrate the actions depending on the user roles or user permissions basically. And then finally we just also talk about the electronic signature uh, on the actions in some cases if required. Alright, so I'll just take to the Salesforce screen, and what we're going to talk about is the application called 123 Climb Compliance. And here as a custom workflow process, it for the admin, he would be able to see 4 tabs which talks about workflow status, workflow actions, workflow rules, and workflow history. So this is basically for the admin to maintain the entire custom workflow process, and he can create all the process required for the organization. So let's talk about the workflow status. So this is the status. You can define n number of status here. So we just try to mock the initial requirement given by parent, and this is the 3 status that we currently added there. Like one is initial review completed, open. The 3 status that is there, admin can do add more status if required. Actions. These are the actions that is defined here. The same way the admin can also add actions to it. Here for every actions we have defined the same actions that is defined in the presentation. So for the actions, you can also assign whether this e sign is required for this action, any command required for this action, and you want to give any description for this particular action. So this also covers what we develop for the action. Right, so now let's go to the workflow rule. So if you see here, we have created a workflow rule, and that we attached to this target object account. Okay, so we created a account workflow rule, a custom workflow rule, and we'll show you what rule we created here. We created 3 status associated as a workflow process, and what we had said is, okay, the initial status is open, and this is the start step. So for every record, this is the open status, and this is the action for it. Once for this action, this is going to be the end status. Same thing, this is the start status and this is the end status for the initial review if the action is resent to first line. So for the initial review to change to a review completed, for this action complete review. So basically for one status you have one action, and here for one status you have 2 actions to be done, right? And this is the workflow history where the admin can see which ID, what status, what action was performed, done by whom, and the complete summary of what was done. So it says, okay, this particular review was done by so and so person, and the status was changed from this to this, and if at all electronic signature was applied as well. Alright, so let's take one case scenario. Let's go to an account and say, alright, I need to create a new account, and let's talk about test 222. So this is the account which I created. I saved it. Now since a workflow is attached to this particular account object, you'll see that there is a button in the page layout saying that, okay, now this particular, since it is a new account, the status is opened and the action is sent for initial review. Alright, so I say, I'll just take back to this workflow and say, this is the workflow rule. Let's see, now this is the action and what next is going to happen. So I'll come back here, I'll say it goes for send for initial review. It goes and say, oh, now I have 2 options. Either I can resend to first line, or I can do a complete review. So if I come back here in the workflow process, you'll see that for this particular status now you have two actions that is there. Alright, so now I also would like to add here is we talk about the permission stuff. So for every actions you have two group that I'm associating here, and I'm going to little go to this group and try to tell you. So this is the two groups which I defined. One reviewer group wherein there are two users which are associated with this group, Harish and Parent, and I'll go back and see the approver group is also I'm the only person there. So in this case I am part of both the reviewer group as well as the approver group. So I can see both the things. I can see both actions because I'm part of both the group. So let's say I remove myself from the reviewer group, and then technically I should not see this thing and I should be able to see this, right? So I'll go to the public group, I'll go to the reviewer group, and I say I need to edit it. I'll say okay, I don't want to be part of this group, I remove it, and I save it. When I come back to my account and I press enter, I refresh my screen, I'll see that I only have one action to be performed. That's only the complete review. I don't have the option to do a resend to first line. So once I come back and add it, you'll see that again I'm able to see this resend fine. So for the resend to first line is basically is workflow rule says if I do that it should go back to status as open. So let me try that first. So that becomes a status open. So for the status open workflow rule we have only action is send for initial review. So that's what we see, the send for initial review. Now coming back to the same I'll just click it again so that you get two options, complete review and resend to first line. So now what we see is in the action for this complete review we have said okay, I need a e-sign for this particular action. I don't have a e-sign for this or this action, but for this yes there is. So if I go here and I say complete review, I'll say oh this you are the user, please provide me the password. Okay, the same logged in user password. So he types in the password, press OK. Yes, the status is done, closed. So if you see the complete review is, it says the end status is review completed, and that's the workflow, that's the end. So if you see it's all done. Let's see to the I'll just take this account here and we'll try to look into the history and find it. If you see, these are the history which is kept. It says it was first sent for initial review and this was performed by this person, status was from open to initial review, and again it was the action was resent to first line, it went back to opened, and then again the status went to opened, and then he again changed back to open to initial review, and then from initial review they said complete review, and then the electronic signature was applied here. So if you see, it maintains the entire history of the change of the status for this particular object. Alright, and this is the account object. So with this what we cover here is we talk about the status, we talk about the actions, we talk about the workflow rules, and we also talk about in actions e-sign is required, how to attach a e-sign parameter attribute to the actions. And what we covered here is we went to the workflow rule to set up this permission group. Rather than going to that any actions, we tried okay, you should be part of the workflow steps, because it's the actions that change the status. So the action is something need to be controlled on the group level. So this is what we add as a permission group wherein they can play around with this. So this is the better way to do it, better way of handling um, the authentication, the authorization part of it. So I guess we can just have a look into it and try to uh, review it and let me know your feedback and comment. Thank you very much and hope to see you soon.